LGBT representation in the media is a bit of a subject. It's niche, it's obscure, but it is incredibly important. When I refer to the term media, it is important to preface that I am mainly discussing television, film, and animation. Homosexuality has existed in film ever since the early days of cinema. The first film which portrayed homosexuality was 1895's The Gay Brothers. This 18-second film shows two men dancing with each other while another man plays an instrument behind them. Even though this film might seem insignificant at first glance, it not only serves as the first glimpse of homosexuality to be captured on film, but it is also the first positive LGBT representation in film, something that would become less common in the years to come. 20 years after The Gay Brothers was made, the culture around film had developed to make fun of every race, ethnicity, and sexuality that did not play into the heteronormative American beliefs of the time. Queer people, nonetheless, were no exception to this rule. Gay men were stereotyped as pansies, sissy boys who can't stand their own ground, act cowardly at the first sign of conflict, and are portrayed with feminine features such as feminine mannerisms, appearance, and a lisp, or a queer voice. At times such as in the 1929 film The Broadway Melody, they were characterized with lavender since it was culturally seen as a feminine color. Gay women were portrayed as being mannish or masculine women. They were stereotyped as wearing men's clothing and having their hair in a similar style to a man, such as having a short or slicked back. Many of these stereotypes still haunt the LGBT community to this day. Individuals who are uneducated about or don't know anyone within the LGBT community can take these stereotypes at face value and think that LGBT individuals act like the stereotypes portrayed in the media. For many years, LGBT people in the media were represented in negative or stereotypical depictions, such as comic relief, villains, criminals, mentally or physically ill, or victims of violence. This cycle would eventually reach a breaking point when advocacy for LGBT rights and growing tolerance in American society would change how LGBT people were perceived in media. But by far the biggest contribution towards this change was the legalization of same-sex marriage in the United States. The 2015 Supreme Court decision to make same-sex marriage legal was a monumentous event in the LGBT community. It allowed couples, regardless of what sex they were, to get married in any U.S. state. This law, however, had a strange effect on the people over in Hollywood. A large number of films started to incorporate gay characters into their films or TV shows in different ways aside from the negative one-dimensional stereotypes that audiences have come to know. This matters because viewing media is definitely one of the easiest ways to learn about different cultures, especially for young people who might not be able to access the LGBT community any other way. According to Christian Marrero of Georgia Southern University, adolescents engage with media to learn more about sex, sexual identity, and contact with others like them as a form of socialization. Therefore, media representations of sexual minorities can provide viewers with information about their own sexual identity and provide examples of how LGBT people are perceived and treated in society. Unless you are someone within the LGBT community, film or television community, or animation community, no one is really talking about the subject. Even though as someone who identifies as a member of all these communities, I believe that this topic is important to the future of media. Right now, LGBT representation in media is in a weird spot, where media choose to feature LGBT characters and relationships, either for genuine support and appreciation for the LGBT community, or as a marketing gimmick to make a piece of media look more diverse. This is especially prominent in mainstream media when no mainstream news outlets seem to talk about LGBT characters, unless it has something to do with a Disney character or property.
Oh, apologies, Gonzo. Sorry. Why is this being pushed? I don't know if Gonzo's a cross-dresser or transgender, but if Gonzo is transgender, that is a disorder.
Overall, however, LGBT representation in the media has improved in the last 6 to 10 years. It wasn't until the 90s when homosexuality in the media was starting to be regularly portrayed in a positive light. With events such as the first gay kiss on television, the coming out of famous television personality Ellen DeGeneres, and the Gay Simpsons episode with John Waters. But with these feats also come setbacks. Homosexuality was often used as the butt of jokes, with homosexuals being treated as clowns, being laughed at for their sexuality. Thankfully, this is now a thing of the past, but repercussions from this era can still be felt today. One of the best examples of this, and how opinions change over time, is with the animated comedy series South Park. It is a show that has been running for over 25 years, and a lot has changed socially since it first premiered. South Park has been able to stay funny and relevant while changing its atmosphere and humor in order to captivate modern audiences. Within the first handful of episodes of South Park's first season, we are introduced to the show's first officially gay character, Sparky, in the episode Big Gay Al's Big Gay Boat Ride. Sparky is the dog of one of the show's main characters, Stan. Sparky is shown to enjoy women's fashion, having sex with male dogs, and refuses to have sex with any dog of the opposite sex. After finding out about his dog's homosexuality, at first, Stan is in denial, but then he, along with his friends, try to turn Sparky straight to no success.
And that is the gayest dog I have ever seen. He just needs some training, that's all. Sit, Sparky. Good boy. Now shake. Good boy. Now, don't be gay. Don't be gay, Spark. Don't be gay.
After deciding he's had enough, Sparky runs away somewhere he knows he doesn't have to be oppressed. A big pink castle in the middle of the mountains with a neon sign on the front that reads, Big Gay Al's Big Gay Animal Sanctuary. Stan eventually finds out where Sparky is and heads to Big Gay Al's Big Gay Animal Sanctuary, where he's greeted by Big Gay Al. Big Gay Al invites Stan inside and shows him around. When Stan finds Sparky, he is relieved and tells Sparky, we can work on not making you gay together. But Sparky, who has already had enough, sits down as a sign of standing his ground and stares at Stan. At first, Stan is confused, but Big Gay Al invites Stan on a boat ride similar to Walt Disneyland's It's a Small World, called Big Gay Al's Big Gay Boat Ride. There, Big Gay Al educates Stan on the history of homosexuality and the development of homophobia, which seems to immediately cure Stan's homophobia, and finally comes to accept Sparky for who he is. Even though the episode itself is not very offensive, Big Gay Al as a character is simply made up of different homosexual stereotypes with no other defining character traits or personality. He has a lisp.
I'm super, thanks for asking.
He's flamboyant. He's almost always holding a cigarette, and he presents himself in a feminine demeanor. In Season 6, we are introduced to Mr. Slave, a gay man who is only ever seen wearing a leather hat, vest, pants, and boots, with a crop top, a handlebar mustache, and I don't really know what that is. I think it's a part of his pants. Just like Big Gay Al, Mr. Slave speaks with a lisp.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And is only present in the series to serve as a sexual sidekick and partner to Gabrielsson, the main character's teacher for most of the series. South Park has evolved to represent gay people in a positive light, giving them the proper representation that they deserve. It has done things such as making a gay man president, present the complexity of an authentic homosexual relationship, address homophobia in a mature and thought-provoking manner.
And it's okay to be gay. What?
And treat gay people as normal individuals. Characters such as Big Gay Al and Mr. Slave have been lost in the show's current iteration, being written out of the show and not present in any future episodes. I wish I could say that South Park is able to represent the LGBT community in a positive light, but unfortunately this is not the case. Characters such as Gabrielsson and Caitlyn Jenner are not represented as real people, but props that the show's creators, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, used to poke fun at a minority group. Considering that South Park is a show about satire that makes fun of everything under the sun, I don't see a lot of people that really get upset about these characters. I spoke to some trans people about this subject, and none of them seemed offended about Gabrielsson or Caitlyn Jenner's character in South Park, because they know it's a joke, and does not reflect who and how the trans community actually is. The only issue with South Park's representation of transgender individuals is that there's not a lot of trans representation in mainstream media, especially in animation. So when shows like South Park choose to have such an underrepresented group in their show, they are exposing their audience to a group of people who will more than likely form a negative opinion about them. Other television series such as Transparent, Pose, and Vita tackle the struggles that come with being transgender much better than South Park ever could. But these series are not nearly as popular or acknowledged by the mainstream, so not many people know they exist. Portraying LGBT characters in media is not as complicated as the media might lead you to believe. When you get down to it, the process of creating an LGBT character is almost like baking a cake. From an outside perspective, the process might seem a bit difficult and hectic, but once you sit down and read over the recipe, you begin to understand that all you need to bake a good cake is to follow the instructions and use the correct amount of ingredients. The first thing to remember about portraying an LGBT character is that the character is still a person. Just like their heterosexual counterparts, they have morals, values, and relationships. Just like anyone else, their homosexuality should not be a defining part of their character. The only reason why it should be in the limelight, if at all, is if the character is faced with a situation that makes them come to terms with their sexuality, or is faced with some sort of struggle with their sexuality. LGBT characters, Just like any minority, are characters that just so happen to have a trait that makes them a little different from the norm. But it does not mean that they deserve to be treated differently than anyone else. They are individuals who just so happen to enjoy the company of the same sex, both sexes, or not be attracted to anyone. I don't think there needs to be any policies or complex variables in order to properly portray LGBT characters or relationships in film, television, or animation. There's just a lack of education from the people who are creating this media about LGBT people, relationships, and culture. Without understanding the experiences of LGBT individuals, it is impossible to create an authentic LGBT character that doesn't come off to audiences as just a stereotype. Thank you for listening.